Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming. We'll be getting started shortly. We're just waiting for everyone to finish up in the lobby real quick. Everyone, we're gonna get started. Thank you all so much for coming today to the annual Tenant Forum. You guys, I know it's Thursday night, 6 p.m. You guys have better things to do, but thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. We truly appreciate you guys. We have loads of information to share with you guys tonight and also give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions. We have different speakers up. We're gonna allow them to introduce themselves. Let me start with myself. I'm Mariama Karoma. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist here at the City of Takoma Park.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Devin McNally. I'm the Director of our Housing and Community Development Department here at the city.
Good evening. My name is Rudy Castro. I'm one of the field supervisors from Montgomery County Department of Housing, overseeing the Lower County and Takoma Park inspections.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jean Kerr. I'm the Senior Housing Specialist in the Landlord Tenant Housing Department.
There you go. Hey, good evening. My name is David Mullins. I'm the Outreach Director at the Renters Alliance.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We also want to recognize the council members in the building tonight. Thank you guys so much for coming. We're going to get started with the program. We're going to call up Devin to give the first presentation.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll just quickly go over. So our housing department here at the city is 3 individuals and a housing manager. We're very excited that we will hopefully be having a housing manager join us later this month. But at the moment, we have 2 fantastic staff that are here to help you out. Jean, our senior housing specialist, and Mariam, our community engagement specialist. As always, we are here at the community center up on the 3rd floor from Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And you can also reach out by emailing housing@Takoma Park or going to our website. So a little bit about us. We have a lot of different programs and kind of resources that we provide to tenants, starting with our landlord-tenant mediation. So if you have an issue or even just a question about your rights as a tenant, you're always free to email, call, or come into the office and ask us any questions. We also oversee our rent stabilization program that exists within the city, and that covers half of our rental units that exist within the city. And then we also staff our Commission on Landlord-Tenant Affairs, which is made up of both tenants, homeowners, and then some property owners that adjudicate cases on anything from security deposits to defective tenancies. And we can help you file a complaint with the commission, and then we staff the commission. We also provide rental licensing and tenant opportunity to purchase. So if there are a group of your building is going through a sale, we try to provide assistance to make sure that you can exercise your rights to either purchase the building or assign those rights to a developer. And then we also provide emergency assistance to tenants and homeowners. So a few things that are coming up. We have a rent stabilization policy review that will be beginning later in 2025. The goal as described by council and what we're working on is looking at ways that we can improve its effectiveness. There will be a number of different opportunities for comment and to look at the recommendations. We're still receiving potential contractors who will carry out that study. And once a contractor is brought forward for a contract, that'll go before the city council. We also want to continue our tenant opportunity to purchase law support. So we were very lucky to receive a NED grant from the city. And so we are continuing to try to identify buildings that are potentially being purchased and working with tenants there. We're also going to begin a review of tenant protections. We're targeting spring 2026 to go before council with some high-level concepts and then bring forward an ordinance based on that discussion. And then also increase support for tenant legal services, working with our partners, including CASA, Maryland Legal Aid, and the Renters Alliance. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mariama to walk through some of our resources in more detail.
Thank you so much, Devin. Again, my name is Mariama Karoma. I am the Community Engagement Specialist here at the City of Takoma Park. I know some of you may have already worked with me in the past. I do the tenant and landlord mediation. Some of the programs that we currently have available is the rent assistant, which you need an eviction notice in order for you to qualify for that program. It covers up to $3,600 in rent, in whatever the rent errors is. So basically with that, when you get a rent notice, an eviction notice, you do need a court notice. Once you get that court document, you go online to the City of Takoma Park website, fill out the application, and then the application comes directly to me. I will follow up with you through an email, and then you fill out we set up an appointment date, we go over all the documentations, and then if you qualify, we go ahead and send you the qualification letter and also mail out the check to the property manager. The next is the utility assistant. We do need a discontinued notice. That can cover up to $1,300. We have the foreclosure assistant. You do need a court notice for that as well, and it covers up to $3,600. We do have our newer program, which is the renters insurance rebate program. We can give up to $180. You need an active renter insurance for at least that's for 6 months. So with that, our AMI used to be 30%. We have increased that to now 50%. We're getting a lot of applicants, so if you guys do need to apply for that, we're encouraging everyone to have a renter insurance. Takoma Park have a lot of older buildings, so it is best practice, and we're trying to encourage our tenants within the city to have renter insurance. And that application, all of these applications you can be found under the City of Takoma Park Housing website. Some of the tenant resources, we have a lot of resources that are here today, such as Maryland Legal Aid, CASA, Chair 311, Code Enforcement, the Housing Initiative Partnership. We do have a resource guide that is available online that have different resources that tenants that may be helpful towards tenants, different organizations that have different information. That is updated yearly. So if there's anything you can look for, like housing, shelter, assistant, different programs that are available to you, they're in that housing resource guide. And that can also be found online on the resource page. I will now hand it over to David with Renter Alliance. So questions, if you guys can hold on to your questions to the end.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, Mariama, and thanks to the city and the housing department for allowing us to be here and share our information. We were here last year. We always appreciate the opportunity to partner on this kind of event. Again, my name is David Mullins. I'm with the Renters Alliance, and we work throughout Montgomery County and a little bit in Prince George's County now. And so we've been around since 2010. And we are the first and only regional nonprofit here focused exclusively on renter education and outreach, reaching out to renters to let them know what their rights are, what kind of, what rights they don't have, also what kind of policy changes may be being discussed at the local and state level. And then, but our bread and butter, what we really like to do when we're out in the field, whether it's Takoma Park, one of our other municipalities, or throughout the county, is help people support in the formation of tenants associations. I think there's going to be a little more information, coming up about, for context, about all the things that tenants association, the benefits of having a tenants association, tenant union, whatever you want to call it. And so we come to a lot of properties that don't have one, and we try to go door to door, help people get to know their neighbors, and if there's interested people, help them form one. But tenant associations can be, I was just talking to some folks talking about how demanding it can be with all the other things going on to meet and keep those going once you have them. So we want to be there for that support too, help people brainstorm, because tenants associations don't just have to be about issues, about negative things happening to sustain them and keep building community. We can often help brainstorm ways to keep people involved. But we also work with individual tenants and in kind of a casework capacity. We do that a lot for tenants, renters who are facing eviction. So we go down, we work with our partners here, Maryland Legal Aid, and CASA, who hopefully you saw their tables out there tonight as well. Through the Access to Counsel and Evictions program, we're able to help refer people, to these legal organizations when necessary. But we find that just navigating, there's a lot of good resources out there. We just heard about some of the city ones. Navigating these resources when there's intertwining, jurisdictions, there's the county and the city and the state and things all have landlord-tenant law. We can help with individual cases in that navigation, some kind of who to call about what, and then also sometimes just there's miscommunication, and we can help with follow-up and things. And then, of course, there's often in individual cases, there's miscommunication or difficulty between the landlord and the tenant. And so, the city's landlord-tenant office here, and for the rest of the county's office does, offers, mediation and limited enforcement and things. And but again, then there are those limitations. And so, being an independent nonprofit, we like to really help people navigate and then sometimes fill gaps and in those moments. But as far as, please, if you haven't gone to our table, all the things I'm laying out are on our materials there. You can join our town hall meetings. Like I said, get with us about getting to work at your specific property, ways we can support you, or if there's individual casework you need, that's all can be there. And then the final piece I'll say is we try really hard to help support tenants who are already advocating for more tenant protections, or inform tenants, again, at the state or local level, whether it's rent stabilization, something like good cause, also known as just cause eviction protections at the state level. We really, want to make sure renters know when those, hearings are, when the public's being heard from, so we can come out and because those rights are not going to, we're not going to get those rights, and we're certainly not going to keep them unless we stay active and stay on them. So I'll leave it at that, but if you have, and there's going to be questions, and again, please come see us, get a button and say hi if you haven't already. Thanks again. Do you need me to pass it off?
No.
Oh.
So I'll talk a bit about registering a tenant association. So as it's been alluded to, tenant associations are a great way for not only community, but also a way to kind of come together and exercise your rights. There are ways that you can file a complaint with our Commission on Landlord-Tenant Affairs as one tenant association. So instead of having to file independently, you can file jointly together as a commission. There are specific protections for renters who are in a tenant association to organize and get together. And then it also can help you facilitate conversations with your property owner directly. And that could be on everything from, kind of issues with the building to kind of procedures, processes, that sort of thing. And then on top of it, getting to know your neighbors, bringing community together. So to register, it's a fairly simple process. We have a tenant registration form that we have online, or you can ask one of our staff members and we can provide it to you. And you need to just collect signatures from tenants representing a third of occupied units. So let's say you're in a building of 100 individuals, you need 33 signatures if all 100 units are occupied. We always recommend get a few more than that just in case, but you only need a third. Once you do that, you can submit it to the city staff via email, or you can mail it directly to us at the community center. And then we provide that application to the landlord. They have 5 days to only challenge the signatures. They don't have the opportunity to say, no, we wouldn't like a tenant association. They only have the right to say that a signature is not from someone who lives in the building. If there's no challenge after 5 days, then the tenant association is formally registered and exists in our roles. A challenge, we would go in and just verify through a lease that the individual who signs it is someone who lives in the building. So it's a very simple process. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them on that process, but we really encourage, it's a great way for you to get to know your neighbors. It's a great way for you to kind of come together on issues, and it's also a great way to kind of build that community within your building. I also want to quickly talk about our tenant opportunity to purchase law. So under the law, tenants have the first right to purchase their building or assign their rights to another purchaser when it comes up for sale. For buildings of 7 or more units, it has to be through a tenant association. There have been some changes at the state level. So if there's 3 units or less, it's done through a state monitored process. But for 4 units or more, it falls under our law. We have a grant. We were lucky enough to get some state assistance that helps us provide assistance to tenant associations to get legal representation for people who can represent and try to exercise their rights. And then also, if you're successful in purchasing or assigning your rights, we can also go and get some capital funding to help with that as well. We've done this a couple of different times over the past couple of years. One time a building purchased and turned into a cooperative, and then the other, their rights were assigned to an affordable nonprofit builder. So a little bit about tenant law basics. I'll turn it over to Jean Kerr, who is our senior housing specialist at the City of Takoma Park.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about the rent stabilization law, one of Takoma Park favorable program that started back in 1981. So rent stabilization applies basically if it's 2 or more rental units or a single rental condominium unit. It also limits the rent increase that can be taken each year on a tenant. The percent for this year is 2.4%. It started in July 1st, 2025 and runs through June 30, 2026. All increases can be taken every 12 months on the anniversary date as long as the landlord gives you a 2-month notice. So you must get that notice before the rent can be increased. Also, properties that are exempt are single family, ADUs, properties that has an agreement with the state or the county where they already have an agreement that will state that they'll rent to low to moderate income tenants. So those are exempt as well. Also, Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program tenants are exempt, but they have to apply to get an exemption. 2 units where the owner live in one and rent the other is also exempt from rent stabilization. So properties, housing with the housing choice voucher and the properties where they already have an agreement with the state, they would have to apply to the city to get an exemption. Okay. Also, under the rent stabilization program, landlords has to file rent reports each year. And the rent report shows what the landlord is charging for that year and the increase that has been taken. So the rent reports are submitted for compliance and it's thoroughly reviewed every year. Also, under the rent stabilization allowance, we have the fair return petition where a landlord can apply to get a higher rent increase above the rent stabilization allowance. They must be able to show that their net operating income has decreased over the years. So for example, if they have capital improvement, they can also throw that into the fair return as well. But again, they must show that their net operating increase has decreased over the year, such as if they have to get money from their savings account every month to cover the cost for operating the building, then they can apply for a fair return petition. So there's a base year, and then there's a current year and 2 prior year that the consultant review. So I always try to suggest to landlords to apply, but you also have to have a lot of documentation. So you have to have at least 3 years documentation. So once the petition is filed, all tenants are notified. They have the right to come in and review the packet, the fair return petition packet. Once it goes out to the consultant, then they review it and they come up with a decision. All decisions are sent to the landlord, which must be sent to the tenants. So in the beginning, the landlord will file the petition, and I will send letters out to the tenant, let them know that the landlord has filed a petition. So they'll know there's an increase that's coming if they're approved. Also, we have the Commission on Landlord-Tenant Affairs that has 12 members made up of landlords, tenants, homeowners. 3 commissioners, when we have a hearing, 3 commissioners hear the case. Then they decide at the end and then come up with a decision. The decision is usually mailed out within 30 days, and it can be appealed in the circuit court for Montgomery County. I'm going to explain the COTA process. So the tenant submit the letter, the complaint form, and supporting documentation. Then I will send it out to the landlord, and he or she has 20 days to respond. Once they respond, we'll try to negotiate, and if it doesn't negotiate, then it goes to a hearing where the commission, 3 commissioners will oversee the hearings. The decision is then rendered within 30 days, as I mentioned earlier. The hearings are set up as administrative hearings, but you still have to do the whole. So it's similar to a court, but it's not really a court, but it's administrative. And it's appealable in the circuit court. Okay? Best practices for tenants: when you move in and move out, make sure you take pictures. Pictures is the key, especially if you want to file a complaint with the landlord, against the landlord. Always keep a copy of your lease, as well as a receipt of your security deposit. Some landlords will put the security deposit information in the lease. And if it's in there, then that's fine, but always keep a copy of your receipt for your lease. Make sure you get renter's insurance, very important, especially if you have a flood. You know, you can talk to your insurance, and we do have the tenant displacement law that also helps, so you have to notify the city when that happens. Also, report any apartment issues, any problem you have. Make sure you put it in writing to your landlord and give them a few days to respond, and if they don't respond, then you dial 311 for a complaint to have an inspector to come out. Make sure everything you do is in writing, because that's the key. Everything in writing to your landlord. Okay? All right. So I'm going to pass the mic on to Rudy, who is our code enforcement supervisor from Montgomery County.
All right. Good evening again, everybody. Thank you, Gene, and thank you for having me tonight. Once again, my name is Rudy Castro. I'm one of the field supervisors overseeing the Takoma Park team for the Department of Housing and Community Affairs Code Enforcement Section. So who we are, we're a small team of 5 inspectors and a supervisor. We oversee, again, the lower county section, so we don't just respond to issues here in the city, but we also do lower parts of the county, Silver Spring, Takoma Park, and so on and so forth, Bethesda. So we're 5 inspectors that were constantly out there responding to several service requests. All right, so our mission is to enhance the quality of life, of course, with the residents here of Montgomery County by actively ensuring the neighborhoods are safely, welcoming, vibrant, and we're committed to ensuring that all homes meet housing standards, of course, by being safely and in a livable condition. We try to do that by attending community engagement programs, of course, like such as this one, to educate residents of what we do, or what your rights are as tenants and landlords as well. And we foster a sense of belonging and pride among the residents. Okay, so how are we working towards achieving our mission is, of course, our inspectors are out there performing mandated inspections on rental properties, especially here in the city of Takoma Park. and it's only for rental properties. We investigate potential code violations reported by the tenants on registered rental properties. Unregistered rental properties as well get inspected. Once we discover that they're not registered with the city, then of course we send that over to the city of Takoma Park for their follow-up. Educate the residents, like I said before, and property owners as well, as far as what code enforcement and what codes they should be following to have a livable and safe community and home with the units here within the city. Some of the codes that we enforce, there's a list here on the screen, Chapter 26, of course, of the Montgomery County Code for housing and building maintenance standards. For smoke detectors, solid waste, snow removal, weeds, inspection of rental housing, and property maintenance codes. Of course, our goal is to ensure, again, that we're abiding by our agreement, completing mandated inspections within a certain amount of time, and we're responding to those service requests that anybody here in the city or within the lower portion of the county are submitting through 311. We provide monthly reports to the city to show them how many inspections, how many notices of violations, or any citations that we've issued throughout our time here in the city, and the response that we've had as far as complaints and number of issues that we've experienced here in the city. And of course, we always try to have an open line of communication with the city officials and other agencies throughout the county to ensure that these properties are meeting the county codes. Once again, we're here to perform regular property maintenance on license inspections. These are biannual and annual inspections. These are 100% inspections of all units for rental properties. We also perform pre-rental license inspections for new rental properties. And again, we respond to all complaints received on rental housing. And some of the enforcement actions include notice of violations and, of course, citations if none of the issues are being resolved by the landlords. Once again, we conduct multifamily inspections, single-family rental inspections. These are annual or biannual. New rental properties, and as needed to investigate any complaints that are submitted to our department. Some of the common violations, just a couple of pictures here. Water damages, grass, egress issues, elevators not working. That's a big one here. No water or no hot water, no utilities. And those are some of the most common issues that we come across here when we respond to these concerns that are submitted with the county. And of course, we collaborate with other departments, whether it's the police department, the fire department, Department of Permitting Services as well. So it's a majority of, it's a big group of other departments that we collaborate with to ensure that, again, every property is meeting the county code standards. So that's all I have. So I'll turn it back in to Mariama for any questions.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to open up now for anyone who has questions. I will bring the mic around, just address your question, and one of us will be able to answer the questions.
Yes, someone said it right there.
I live in the Essex House Apartments down on Maple Avenue. I know that the rent stabilization is at 2.4%. Is that correct? And I know it does not pertain to properties that are tax credit properties. Is there a ceiling rate on a tax credit property that a tenant can charge, that a property manager can charge a tenant? And what is that ceiling rate, please?
So for a tax credit property, it depends on the agreement they have and specifically what type of unit it is. And those will have what are called income limits, and those are set kind of the maximum as set by HUD. In terms of the rent increase, as long as they are under those income and rent limits, they are free to move that rent around to some degree. Now, the county does sometimes require properties that they assist to follow what they call the voluntary rent guidelines. This was before rent stabilization, and that does limit it as well, potentially. So it depends on each specific building and their specific stack of subsidies.
So is there a certain point that a property owner can charge a tenant for rent?
Correct.
How
There's
can
an
they go, how high can this percentage go to?
Yeah, so it's recalculated every year, but there is a limit in terms of the actual rent that they can charge. So that's kind of how the affordable deed restriction works.
Is that posted anywhere? I mean, is it like?
We can make sure that, yeah.
Oh, so sorry. You said that it is documented somewhere and we can
Yes.
get that information?
Yes, we
Okay.
can make sure that that gets provided.
Thank you.
I also really quickly want to say for the people on Zoom, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and we can work you into the speaking order.
Hi, my name is Doris Duarte. I live in Hampshire Tower. I have a question. Before Rudy started talking, it was a screen where we could not see because it was brownish. And for the ones that are using their phone, can y'all do that screen so they can see? Because we weren't able to see because of the coloring.
This one?
Oh, it just had the inspector's name.
Orange,
Interesting.
Oh,
It's the inspector's name.
dark orange.
so Rudy,
Yeah, so those are the 5 inspectors that oversee, again, the lower county sections. We have Jabray Body, Guadalupe Miranda, Richard Johnson. Who's the other one? I even forgot my inspectors. Guadalupe Miranda and Tim Randolph. And Michelle Hadrick is our newest inspector.
I'm gonna get him first, and then he raises hand first, and then you. No problem.
On the subject of the Commission of Landlord-Tenant Affairs, it was recommended that documentation be made for tenant complaints, and especially communicating via email. Me and my neighbors have a landlord who makes claim that it is a violation of our lease to send him emails. In the lease, it does make reference to that communication will be done via cellular phone. I think it may specify even calls. I'm curious if that's even permissible, and if it is, how you recommend, if we just need to be putting things in the post, or if there's any recommendation you can make.
so what I would say is there's a number of ways that you can document. So with the Commission on Landlord-Tenant Affairs, we've used text messaging as long as you are clear who you're talking to in the train. That said, this would be something we would want to speak with the landlord about. There's certainly a need for some sort of communication between the landlord and the tenant that is written down so that there's clear understanding between both parties. And it sounds like this landlord is trying to create a lot of obscurity and not be clear in their communications. So what I would say is, let's talk afterwards and see if we can speak with that landlord, because I would agree that that's not a way that landlords and tenants should be communicating. There should be clear ways. And what I would say is written communication is also very good. So if you have a letter, you make a copy of that letter and then you send one copy and keep a copy for your own records, that would be something that the commission could look at.
Thank you.
Hello. I have a few questions. What happened with Julia Terrence for inspection?
Sure. Julia Tom and Terrence Rhodes are with another team within the county. Yeah, so they were transferred over to a different team.
Okay. The last time Essex House had inspection lasted for 3.5 seconds. They come inside of the unit, they just walked, and they went out.
Okay.
I need you to train them and tell them what to do, to open the water, to check the water,
Right.
bugs, mice,
They should already be doing
whatever.
that.
I
Okay.
mean, that was wasting of my time and their time.
Right, right.
Right now, you're telling me the 2.4 percentage is increase. What's happening with Essex House? We got increase of 5.7%. Did you guys get 5.7% increase in your rent or pay stubs? I mean, this is unbelievable. All these houses in Takoma Park is low-income units. So if they got 5.7 increase, this is amazing. For a second, I mean, nobody told us about this stuff. In these last 5 years, every single year we had increase during the COVID as well. So we need to be updated to see what's happening, what do we need to do. I mean, this is not acceptable. So I'm gonna start keeping in touch with all of you to see what's happening, because this is not. Thank you so much for doing this. We really need to be up to date. Also now when we call 311, are they gonna transfer to Takoma Park, or are we still dealing with the 311 Montgomery County?
Yeah, so what I'll say is with Essex House specifically, they do have the affordable housing exemption, given that they have an agreement, a LIHTC agreement. In regards to 311, calling 311 should get a county inspector out there. I know that we've had in the past some issues where 311 operators will tell callers that they need to go back to the city. We have spoken with them, and I believe that they now understand that a 311 code enforcement complaint within the city of Takoma Park, it falls within kind of their realm, and that they should take it down. And what I would say is, if you do call and they say it is within the city, please be insistent that they take down the information and put it into the DHCA code enforcement system, because that will generate the ticket and the code enforcement team will handle it. If you do get that pushback, please tell them to just put it into the system, and we know that a code enforcement officer will get it. I would also say, if you do call, please make sure to get the ticket number, so that if you don't hear anything, you can follow up with city staff and we can follow up with code enforcement. If you do it online, you will get an automatic email with the ticket number that tells you it's a service request number. And that will be something that's helpful for us, because that means we can go give the county DHCA that service request number, and it makes it easier for them to go find that case.
Mm-hmm. Alex, I just want to tell you too, the 5.7 is what the county rent stabilization allowance is currently. So I think that's what Essex House is using. Because they have an agreement with the county, so they have to use what the county rent stabilization allowance is.
But we did this. But the increase is based on what? I mean, if you have a time, right now, tomorrow, in 5 days, just go through the building. It's disaster. It's falling apart. Last remodeling was 10 years ago. The building is built in 1963. Please, we need help. Please back us up.
They just applied for their application for exemption, so I guess Devin and I can talk about it.
And what I would say is, Alex, we're definitely aware of Essex House. I know that we're keeping an eye on them. I know that the elected officials had a long conversation with them about kind of issues at the building and what their plan is moving forward. So we're not going away from Essex House anytime soon. And they know that we're paying special attention to that particular building. Yep. Yep.
And they just ignored it until finally on Monday morning, 20 people came out of the building and then they got scared. You know, so, and just based on that, they shouldn't raise the rent. But they didn't do nothing, they just sent me these letters. Knowing that if they're backed up by Montgomery County, the county, you know, what we can do.
And so what I would say is there are occasional times where if there's a health and safety issue, there is the ability to file what's called a rent escrow claim. And that's what CASA and Maryland Legal Aid can assist with. Unfortunately, it has to be done at the individual tenant level, but what it means is that rent can be withheld. We can't unfortunately do that at the city level. We can do kind of after the fact for damages or things like that. And we're happy to talk with any tenants individually if, let's say, there was kind of mold damage or something that the landlord caused in your property. We can work with you on a COLTA complaint or something similar to that. So what I would say is, I know that the system is not perfect. We try to, as much as possible, working with DHCA, kind of respond to these events and try to ameliorate them, and then also push landlords to avoid having us show up in the first place. So I know in this case, though, we're going to be continuing to have conversations with Essex House.
Devin, I have a question. If they form a tenant association, can they file the rent escrow on behalf of the tenants in the court?
I'm not entirely sure. I would
Okay.
defer to a lawyer in that case.
I think the CASA would be a good resource, but that's a
Yes.
yeah, that's a good question. That's a good point. I think the Tenant Safety Act that passed at the state level, it was I think it was Delegate Stewart. Tenant Safety Act addressed that very thing. So certainly we can get you there or reach out to CASA about that.
Just one more question. In our building, HVAC is part of this.
Oh.
Just one more.
Tenant Safety Act.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. In Essex House, which is old, made 1963, each unit has HVAC unit, which is locked, so we cannot use it. So when we putting the AC or heat on, especially in the bathroom, you can see it's actually dust going out of the unit. So when the inspection comes and I show them how much dust is actually going out, that is not safe because I'm breathing that. They said that they cannot do anything because that is not under the a code environment, I guess.
So what is tenant responsibility? What we can do? Because we cannot access HVAC unit, but I've been there in my unit for 18 years. We have somebody who's 40 years. What are the rules and regulation? What we can do under that issue, please?
Yeah. So there's a nuanced distinction in this case, because there's the grate itself, which is the tenant's responsibility to clean. The filter should be the responsibility of the landlord. And
Right.
so that's, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so the filter, anything with the HVAC system is the landlord's responsibility. So tenants technically don't have access to that, are not allowed access to that particular closet area. Only the landlord can go in and do any repairs or anything of that nature, as far as, filter changes and all that stuff.
So how many times they can change the filter? Twice per year?
They should be changing it twice per year, but, we, of course, we finding this out that they don't do it twice a year. They just do it maybe once, or they just forget the whole year. So that's where we come in and start issuing notices of violation. You're welcome.
And just a quick reminder to people on Zoom, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and we can include you.
Okay, I have a few questions. The tenant opportunity to purchase law, if you can elaborate on that a little more. So when that opportunity arise, so let's just say if I want to purchase a property, an apartment building, do I have to occupy one of the units there in order to receive assistance from you guys on? Yes.
Yeah, I can, and then we can get to your other questions. So the tenant opportunity to purchase law is triggered by a contract for sale of a building. So once there is essentially a contract that has been accepted by the seller of the building, then it gives the tenants, so the people residing in the building, the opportunity to either purchase the building or as a collective, or assign their rights to somebody. And so that is kind of the beginning period.
Okay. And then my next question is for, I think it was the rebate for the homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance. I think there's a income 50%. So let's just say if there's no wiggle room if I make over that AMI rate, because I'm finding myself over the income limit as a single person, where I meet all the requirements for everything else. I have the renter's insurance, the cameras, but I never receive a rebate because I'm over the limit.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're over the 50% AMI for a one-person household, you wouldn't be eligible for this program. We have occasionally raised it in the past if we're not receiving enough applications, but at the moment, that's the hard limit.
Okay. Last question. Is there any update on the Washington Adventist Hospital? Would that still be turned into apartment buildings, or is there any update on that?
So the city isn't aware of any kind of development plans on it. They are hosting a meeting, I believe, next Tuesday virtually. And then they also have a website that has their current plans regarding demolition.
Thank you. My name is Saul Schneiderman. I'm a former tenant. I'm a homeowner now, and I'm with a group called Community Visions for Takoma, which is supporting our wonderful rent stabilization law. And thank you for all of the city staff who implement the program of rent stabilization here. Our tenants stay in Takoma Park for much longer than tenants do in Montgomery County, and I think that's because of our rent stabilization law. And also for folks who are homeowners here, having a stable community where renters can raise a family and go to school is good for everybody in the city. So thank you. And my question is for the gentleman from Renters Alliance. you talked about activities that tenant associations can do that really are social in nature or help build community. So can you explain what some of them might be? And also, the tenants that want to meet, can they meet in their buildings, or do they need to get permission from the landlord for that?
Great. Well, on the first, I might check with you all a little bit on the second part, but on the first part of your question, yeah, sometimes there can just be a social aspect we've seen, which is just, great. I mean, if you, some tenants associations that have been around for a while are collecting dues and getting some refreshments and things, and may have, like you're alluding to, maybe they have a good space, and so that's helping too, to meet. But even just less on the just fully social, just beyond the kind of complaint and problem focus, there also is just the kind of more broader community, like who do you maybe want to bring in, invite, like, first of all, inviting housing folks is often a good way for ones that are getting started. But then beyond that, if there's public safety concerns, community police officers are always glad to join, in our experience, tenants associations meetings if they get notice. Then of course, some of your local elected officials can be a draw, or things like that. And then there is, but yeah, we would look, the best case scenario is if there can be this, a real social thing where it's a regular meeting. And then we've had tenants associations have someone come in, explain how to have plants on your balcony, for instance, someone expert on this. And maybe that won't draw everybody, but that might be interesting for some. So it's certainly property specific, but yeah, but a lot of options there. Oh, and then so for the meeting space, I don't know if it's in the Takoma Park law, but in the county law and I know in a couple of the other municipalities, yeah, and no, it's a state law too, that yeah, you have access to if there's a community room, if the tenants association is meeting for the purposes of a tenants association meeting, which can dip into the social like we're talking about, but it would need to be a tenants association meeting, and once a month you should be entitled to use a community space that is there. Does that sound right?
Yeah. And in some cases, I mean, we've seen some tenants associations use a variety of different spaces depending on kind of what the building is. Some of the older buildings, they might not have a community room. So they have like a laundry room, and that becomes their community room for the meeting itself. But there does need to be some space offered. And as always, if there are tenant associations who are interested in meeting and don't feel like they have a good space on their site, please reach out to the city and we can try to provide some space for you.
Yeah, we've definitely worked with TAs to try to get is there a library nearby? Should we reserve a room there or something like that? And yeah, you can get a little creative. And then, but let's remember, it's always that everyone isn't always comfortable. If it's a very sensitive situation between some certain tenants and the landlord, they might want to meet offsite too, right? So very property specific, but please, we have, again, use us as a resource for sure if you're trying to figure out where to go and your rights there.
Mm-hmm. Devin, do we have any questions on Zoom?
None at the moment.
Okay.
Hi, Randy Gibson. I wanted to ask Devin with regard to tenant associations here in Takoma Park, as in how many tenant associations do we have? What percentage of either the medium, large scale units we have? And I also want to affiliate myself with my colleague here with Community Vision for Takoma. We're a local group that is working on, among other things, on tenants' rights, and we are very interested in the rent stabilization process to make it good and to protect the rent stabilization that we have. Thank you, Devin.
Yeah. So I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I'm happy to pull that together. We have, I want to say, 5 or 6 tenant associations at the moment.
Probably about 5.
Yeah.
We're looking at the president, one of the president right now, with the hat, Doris, at the Hampshire Cows.
Well, we've got a few more, Doris. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a couple more, yeah.
Yeah, so Hampshire Towers is our largest apartment complex. And then, we have some that are 20-unit buildings and some that are, 12-unit buildings. So it runs the gambit. I don't have a specific number.
I guess I'm driving at, we have a low percentage of, a relatively low percentage of tenant associations compared to the number of rental units. I guess I'm just trying to get Devin to acknowledge, not that he's dodging it, but I believe that among the many multifamily housing rental units that we have in this city, a very small proportion of them have renters associations, which I would like to see increased. I think that would increase renters' advocacy.
We absolutely share that goal. We'd love to see more tenant
Yes,
associations.
we do.
What I would say is I would never want to discourage anyone from coming forward and working. We want to work with all tenants, and so we understand that as kind of alluded to, some people see pulling together a tenant association is a daunting challenge, and so we want to be here to support, and even if they aren't a formal tenant association, we still want to work with them. So.
Can I note real quick, too, that y'all do have a lot more smaller rental buildings than we see in other parts of the county when we're canvassing, and that can be, beneficial for knowing your neighbors, but maybe challenging in trying to build the power. But sometimes also, if a cluster is owned by the same person, there can be an organizing opportunity there. So glad to help get creative.
Thank you. Faith Ubona here. Hi. Quick question, just for clarification. How does rent stabilization apply to properties with market rate units?
So in the city, if you do not fall into one of those exemptions that were outlined by Jean, those are rent stabilized units. So for all intents and purposes, all of our market rate units are rent stabilized. So if you are in a building that has an exemption, it is either a subsidized affordable housing complex or is a single family rental or meets one of the other exemptions.
Hi, Susan Rogers, also with Community Vision for Tacoma. I'm wondering if we could go back to, I think it's slide 2. There was something there that I had questions about, and maybe others do too.
Stop me when I get to it. This one?
No. Go ahead. Okay, there, yes. So this is labeled as tenant programs, and there's something there that says rental assistance, need an eviction notice, covers up to $3,600. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have what we call our emergency assistance program, and Mariama is our program manager, who does a great job in walking residents through it. And the idea there is it provides emergency assistance to residents who are facing kind of a crisis. So that includes an eviction, foreclosure, or a utility disconnect. So these are, very serious incidences. So with the rental assistance portion of it, what we need is a court filing for an eviction for failure to pay rent. It usually comes on either a white or goldenrod piece of paper directly from the court. And that tells you the amount in back rent that is owed as of that filing. So it does not need to be, you don't have to go to court. and get a judgment against you as long as there is a filing against you that would qualify you. Once you come in, you can apply online, and then we intake you. We sometimes, if you have more than $3,600 in back rent, we will try to work with the county to help you secure additional funds. And the idea is to help prevent that eviction.
Thank you. Susan Schreiber, also part of Community Vision for Tacoma. And listening to the services provided, and I'm thinking about the benefits of being part of a tenants association. If you come in and you're not part of a tenants association, how do you get basic information about what your rights and opportunities are? Is there anything that goes out when someone rents an apartment that gives them some background and list of resources?
Well, one thing is now there's a new state Bill of Rights that is supposed to accompany every lease. I don't know if there's a grace period in implementing that, but there's the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs of the state that was created by a recent bill and is brand new, and their first initiative was this state Bill of Rights that is supposed to come out and should be with the lease. And they hope to expand that to include what your local ones are, but they're going to need some time to research that. But there's at least that piece.
Yeah, and what I would say is one of the things that the city has is our office is open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can get in touch with us via phone. You can email us. You can walk into the office. We try to have staff there every single day because we realize there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of situations that are unique to every single resident. And so if we don't know the answer, we're going to try to get you in front of someone who can answer those questions. And that includes, not only partners like the Renters Alliance, but also legal aid resources like CASA, like Maryland Legal Aid. So there's a wide variety of resources. And so what we try to do is not only be a source of information, but also be a referral as well in cases where we don't have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
See one there.
I realized I didn't introduce myself, but my name is Brandon Marino, and I'm with the Flower House Tenants Union. I have two questions. First, I know earlier in our conversation, there was a reference to the effort statewide to put in place a just cause eviction requirement. I'm curious if anybody is aware that there's anything preventing the city of Takoma Park from putting in place an ordinance which would basically have the similar effect, if either county or state law would preempt that.
Yeah, so the rules around evictions are state laws. And there is specific language that actually calls out Montgomery County specifically around no cause notices to vacate. So it needs to be state action to address that. And I know that the city has been a strong supporter of just cause and will continue to be a strong supporter of that in future legislative sessions. We're really hoping that this year we can get it across the finish line. We got really close last year. So the hope is that, 1 or 2 more sessions, we can get it cracked.
Yeah, hopefully.
If just for those watching and here that don't know, so this is so necessary because as it is right now, landlords just don't have to state any reason if they decide not to renew your lease. And so sometimes people don't even notice that because as long as they're keeping up on rent, nothing's going wrong, they'll offer the renewal. But no, they can just give you a 60-day notice to vacate at the end of your lease term without saying any reason. And so that's why this is so crucial as a good cause. The state proposal is a local enabling, to your point, law. So the one that passed the House of Delegates but failed in the Senate this last time around did not get a vote in the Judicial Proceedings Committee. That would have not done good cause eviction for the whole state. It would have given municipalities, counties, an opportunity to pass their own good cause eviction law. And I'm glad this came up for a number of reasons, because I did want to mention this before too. With the places where you have to recertify, the ones that are low-income housing tax credit or LIHTC buildings, again, each covenant is different. It's messy. We're glad to help go through it. But a lot of them, a lot of the LIHTC buildings have good cause protection under federal tax ordinances. So another reason to kind of get help digging through those covenants, because a few people may have it in some of these buildings, but we do not have it statewide. And I will just mention, I'm getting in trouble, Matt, our executive director, doesn't like when I do this, but I mean, it's a pretty settled thing that it's state law and things, but Baltimore did pass it, and it never got tested. It sunset before it got tested. So I don't know that our big courts have really said for sure, but I believe the municipalities and the counties agree that they need to go through the state first.
Thank you for that thorough answer. My next question was just on this topic of the rent stabilization policy review. Where can we find more information, or if there's a calendar of when the contractor selection and period for comment will be taking place? Because I'm very interested in participating in that.
Absolutely. So we have a webpage on our website. So if you Google Rent Stabilization Policy Review, Takoma Park, it should pop up. But if you go to our website and our tacomaparkmd.gov/housing, it'll be on the tab to the left. There is also a sign-up button there for an email list that we will be using to communicate kind of project updates. Currently, we extended the RFP response period to October 1st to allow for more submissions. And so we're hoping towards the end of October to bring forward a consultant to council as part of awarding a contract from that point.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you to everyone. I apologize, I arrived late. I was actually at Victory Tower at a tenants meeting. So Director McNally, I'll share some of the things that they had to report out. They have new management, so there have been some good things happening. I had a question related to what the previous gentleman asked. A couple of questions about how the city conducts outreach to let renters know, tenants know about what's going on. The first is, does the city have an address list of all rental properties and the units therein, such that they could send out mailings when something important is changing in the law, or such as when this review is coming up?
So the city has an address list that we use for elections, and so we can use that for any kind of direct mailings that do occur. Yes.
Okay, and is that foreseen within the budget for this rent stabilization review?
That would need additional budget. It can run pricey. We can, I mean, as part of council, we can get numbers, but it usually is a few $1,000s.
Okay, thank you. And related to that, under the current climate, with a lot of different federal agencies and ICE affiliated activities going on, how do you see that affecting outreach and engagement with tenants who actually are being advised sometimes not to even open their doors? You know, so how the ground has shifted under our feet. I'm not trying to ask you an impossible question, but what is the thinking right now in terms of how that engagement will be robust?
So what I would say, I think this is a good time to talk about the city of Takoma Park and our staff never ask about immigration status or nationality. That's not something that our staff would ask, and if you hear anyone from the city asking about that, that is not a city employee, and that is not a question they should be asking. Our goal as city staff is to serve our residents and provide them information and support. We also understand in this climate, in many cases, coming directly to someone's house and knocking on their door can be a scary thing. And so in terms of trying to do outreach, we try to do outreach through partnerships and in ways that provide information. So one of the things I'll try to highlight today is we have what we call a resource kit. It has a number of different pieces of information about housing resources, food resources, emergency resources, immigration resources, transportation resources, all packaged together. And one of the ways that we try to get that out to broaden this question a little bit is through our food service providers. So putting that into kind of the boxes that they distribute. We've had trouble keeping up with how much and how efficient they are at distributing them, so we don't have enough to put in every single box. We're working on kind of making as many as we can, as fast as we can. But there are different ways that we try to provide that information so that people are aware, and that includes the work that our communications department does through radio, the web pages, social media. So there are many different ways that we can try to do touch points for all of our different residents.
My name is Billy Robinson. I live at the Duville, and we do have a renters association which we formed recently, and you were very helpful in getting us up to speed, get us up and running. I wanted to ask about renters insurance rebate. If I want to submit, who do I submit an application to for renters insurance rebate?
Mariama, do you want to take that one?
Yes, so you submit the application to me. We do have the application online as well. It's under the housing department, under resources. You can just fill out the application. The application comes directly to me, and I will send you an email with any additional documentation that you need to present. Yes, and if you give me your email, I can send it out to you where you can apply directly. You're welcome.
We've got two questions in the chat, so I'll read them out and then give an answer. So one is, county inspectors analyze data on a number of code violations to identify troubled buildings and at-risk buildings in the rest of the county outside Takoma Park. Does the county do a similar analysis for rental properties in Takoma Park? Does that data identify troubled buildings and at-risk buildings, building by building, for the city of Takoma Park, and how can residents get access to that data? So it's a good question. We don't currently have enabling legislation in the city to do that. It's something that we would like to consider and work with the county on expanding that to the city. And so that would be certainly something that we would be interested in bringing in front of council when we're discussing tenant protections as a way to provide more tools. Specifically, I think about the action plan that's required for troubled buildings on how that they are going to address the many code violations that they have. The other question is, what about units in an affordable deed restricted building that are not income restricted by the deed? Since not often 100% of the units are restricted, is there some limit on what rent increases can be charged for those units that are not covered by the deed? Another really good question. So the answer is the exemption as it's written in the code is for the entire property. So even the units that are not income restricted wouldn't be subject to the city's rent stabilization ordinance at the moment.
Any more questions? Okay. Do any of you guys have any final comments, statement?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and I want to do a special thank you to Mariama for putting this together and bringing everyone here tonight.
Thank you everyone for coming. As Devin stated, please take the research toolkit. We have plenty outside in different languages. If you want to share with other residents, other tenants, please pass it along. That's why we made them. Thank you guys so much for
Thank you all
coming.
for coming.